this piece of legislation.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Forbes. I rise today to express strong support for my bill, H.R. 5351, which would prohibit the transfer of any individual detained at Guantanamo Bay. Mr. Speaker, last night the news broke that 2 more former Gitmo detainees have rejoined militant groups. This is just the latest case of Gitmo detainees being released only to return to the fight. In fact, the President's own Director of National Intelligence reports 30% of former detainees are known or suspected to have re-engaged in terrorist activities. And yet the President continues to release more and more detainees. When President Obama came to office, there were 240 detainees at Gitmo. The number is now down to 61 after the most recent and largest ever transfer last month. Another 20 have been cleared for transfer. When Hoosiers in my district hear these numbers, they worry that these transfers are leaving our nation open to new vulnerabilities and make Americans less safe. I could not agree more. So while I wish we didn't have to stand here debating this bill, it's an unfortunate reality that our president remains willing to continue putting a misguided campaign promise ahead of the national security. Why else would detainees who were once deemed too dangerous to transfer by President Obama's own Gitmo task force have been released to begin with? That's what happened with 8 of the detainees who were part of the largest ever transfer of Gitmo detainees last month. The task force's recommendation was reversed. These dangerous detainees were redesignated as safe for transfer, and they were sent to the United Arab Emirates. With all this in mind, it was sadly no surprise in March of this year when Mr. Paul Lewis, the President's special envoy for Guantanamo closure, testified in front of the House Foreign Affairs Committee that, quote, Americans have died because of Gitmo detainees. What else will it take for the President to change course on this flawed campaign promise? As the recently released unclassified report on Guantanamo detainees highlighted, the individuals remaining at Gitmo today represent truly the worst of the post-9/11 era. These are hardened terrorists. These are al-Qaeda bomb makers, bodyguards, plotters, and recruiters. Among them is Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind of September 11th attacks. Americans are safer with these dangerous detainees securely locked up. I've been to Gitmo. I've seen our military, the greatest fighting force the world's ever seen, standing guard to protect the American people from those who would do us harm. I know the Gitmo facility is the safest, most secure place for these detainees. But this isn't just about the terrorists themselves. There's also significant concerns about the capacity and the capabilities of the countries receiving these transfers and the adequacy and transparency of the agreements being made by their governments. Take, for example, the recent case of a former detainee who was released to Uruguay, but sparked an international manhunt after he disappeared shortly before the Rio Summer Olympics. Or the former detainee who was transferred to Sudan, a state sponsor of terrorism, and reappeared in Yemen as a leader of the al-Qaeda affiliate there. It's clear these individuals desire to return to the battlefield and that the countries receiving them may not possess adequate resources to effectively track and monitor their whereabouts and activities. Unfortunately, despite repeated inquiries of the administration, we as members of Congress still don't know much about the commitments our government has or gets from these countries. We don't know that, if any, penalties have been levied against countries that lose track of our former detainees. Transparency is long overdue. That's why I authored this language in this year's National Defense Authorization budget that would require complete written agreements from any transfers between countries to be shared with the appropriate congressional oversight committees. To those who may have concerns about my bill, I want to be clear what this legislation does and does not do. First and foremost, this legislation would not enact a permanent lasting ban. What it does do is halt transfers until either this year's NDA is signed into law or until President Obama leaves office on January 20th, 2017. Mr. Speaker, as recently as last week, we heard the President say that he was not ready to concede, that he cannot close Gitmo before leaving office. The week before, we heard a similar message from Vice President Biden. With President Obama's time in office winding down, accelerating transfers to achieve a campaign promise puts Americans at risk. I'm grateful to stand here with the national security leaders in this House on this bill and to remind the American people that our first priority is the safety and security of our fellow Americans. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this important legislation, and I yield back my time.
The gentlewoman yields